joining us now, Pat Buchanan, before Donald Trump comes on to lay waste to Hillary Clinton. And Buchanan's one of our favorites. We just love him. Pat, how are you?
Doing fine, Laura. How are you?
I'm good. So we talk about this Loretta Lynch deal first, and clearly they thought they could wrap up a whole bunch of issues in one attack, and she was saying on Sunday that they were investigating the fact that it was also Latin night at the club. Pat, so it's about immigration. It's about immigration and all you people who still are against gay marriage. You caused this attack.
Well, look, the president said that in opening day. He said, it is an act of terror and an act of hate. But the point is, undeniably, that the individual that slaughtered 51 or 49 people and shot them to death in a gay club and wounded 53 hates gay people, and where would that hate come from? And as for his motivation, maybe when he called in and said, I'm with the Islamic State and Baghdadi's my main man, that might tell you that he is Islamic and he is acting out the hatred of militant Islam for homosexuals and slaughtering them to make his point and making a dramatic statement on behalf of Islamic State that what we can do to you Americans. It doesn't seem to be that difficult to figure out.
No, and the fact that he made his pronouncements, that they knew that was his motivation right off the bat because they reviewed the tapes right away, and yet they still sent out Loretta Lynch on Sunday to put all this other stuff out, which is verifiably untrue. And it reminded me of what they did with Susan Rice. And I don't know what it is. They have some issue with sending out African-American women to lie, first about Benghazi, on the tape, the videotape caused the attack, and now about this, that it was Latin night and it was an act of hate when the guy frequented the club, knew the layout of the club, Pat, and also was recognized by people. So it wasn't a shock to see him there because he had been there many times. So the guys at the door, everybody knew him.
Well, what is the problem with speaking the truth? Did they not in the translation take out Allah and put in God?
Oh, it's all one God, though, Pat, right? I mean, it's all the same.
Yeah, but it might help us identify if you use Allah instead of God, for heaven's sakes. But it all comes down to, what they said, it's a state of denial. They do not want to concede what is the transparent truth, that the West and the United States are in a state of war. The war has been declared on us by these radical Islamists, and there's no doubt about it, they're trying to reach deeper into the Islamic community. The radicals are, by carrying out the kind of attacks that even say, the homosexual activity brings you the death penalty in 10 Islamic countries. And what was done down there at that club is no different than some of the punishments that are meted out to homosexuals in 10 countries, about half of whom claim to be allies of the United States.
Right, where she makes a huge amount of money for the Clinton Foundation. They make the donations. Look, and I know a lot of business folks, including Trump. Trump does some business in Dubai. That's no great shakes either. But Saudi Arabia is kind of the worst of the worst.
You wonder, too, but they talk about, look, to improve their human rights, we're going to impose sanctions on them. Now, hey, fellows, they have the death penalty on homosexuals in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Republic. Number of these, United Arab Emirates.
Yeah.
But the treatment of women is not what you would expect. Why don't you impose sanctions on those folks for human rights reasons? I mean, there's not a great deal of consistency in...
I remember South Africa. Remember all the
exactly.
celebrities ain't going to play in Sun City,
sure.
And the apartheid and all the college campus protests and all this. Meanwhile, China enslaves hundreds of thousands in re-education camps. They cut babies out of the wombs of women. They take the church steeples down and the crosses down. And it's a big collective yawn. And Silicon Valley goes over there and bows and scrapes to them. It's embarrassing.
Well, it is, and if someone suggests maybe a 5% tariff on Chinese goods...
Yeah, exactly. How dare you do that to the good Chinese? Yeah. How you dare do that to good Chinese people? All right, Pat, I'm dying to talk to you about the sideliners. The I told you soers. They're folks in the cruise camp. They're folks in the Bush camp. They're establishment people. They are gleeful at what they see is a moment of peril, political peril for Trump. It's behind in fundraising. Some of the polls, especially the national polls,
I think they want to see him go down to ignominious defeat. And they think that, A, they will inherit the party, and B, they will have been proven right. So I think many of them, I think secretly would like to see Trump's campaign demolished and Trump's campaign collapse.
And because they want the issues to collapse, right, Pat?
Oh, listen, there's no question about it. I mean, we'll go right back to the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Yeah, they're planning on that for the lame duck, which I've been warning people about for, 10 months. But I'm getting all sorts of information from the trade reports that I still get from my old days as a lawyer, these trade journals, and the push for this TPP. Orrin Hatch went over there and talked to Obama last week about the TPP, and they were pushing Richard Shelby on it last night on TV, and he said, well, I can't support it in its current form. You know, there's no familiarity or even understanding.
This is really, let me tell you, if, this has been the year of the outsider. Bernie is the sensation clearly in the Democratic Party, came out of nowhere, 74-year-old socialist, and maybe got 45% or 40-some% of the vote. Trump ran away with the Republican nomination, getting an all-time record in votes. If we wind up in November, December with the same old, and it's with no change whatsoever, and they go back to the trade deals that both Trump and Bernie spoke out against, I don't know how this country
survives.
It's the reaction in this country is going to be a tremendous demoralization and then an utter alienation from the government of the United States. If the Republicans and the Hillary Clinton administration, say, heaven forbid, but got together on something like this in December, I think you'd have a tremendous reaction in the country.
But these people like Marco Rubio, who now just went back on his pledge to run for the Senate seat, not to run for the Senate seat, they actually think, Pat, that 2020 is going to come around and there's going to be this groundswell for globalization, amnesty, which they'll probably already have passed with Hillary. And they think it's going to all be some kind of, everyone throwing rose petals at Rubio because he's from Cuba or something. I don't know what he thinks.
But if they think we're moving toward one world, do they see what is happening all over Europe? You're even getting admissions by editorial writers. I see them in the Wall Street Journal, liberals in the Wall Street Journal, even in the Washington Post. Everybody recognizes ethno-nationalism, economic nationalism, identity, and all of the sovereignty and independence. All of these things are really the rising sentiments everywhere, not only the United States.
Well, and I think the sideline sitters and the never-Trumpers and all these people who feel very self-satisfied every time he takes a stumble or he seems vulnerable, I think the line is going to be drawn here, the patriots versus the globalists. Who believes in an independent, free America, and who believes in the global order, where we're just another country? That's what's on the line here.
I think that's right. It's going to be America first versus the New World Order.
And, the Republicans who are, hoping Trump loses, we can only conclude that you're in the New World Order side.
Well, and they will demonstrate it, I'm sure, with the trade deals and, the interventions and all the other things and the open borders and the amnesty that's coming. That's what's coming if Hillary wins.
Oh, my God. First
de facto amnesty called by another name.
First 100 days, and somehow Rubio and Cruz and these guys think they're going to get Latinos to support them in 4 years? They're going to see that they were dragging their feet on this amnesty, and they're not going to repay them. The idea that these people are sitting around reading James Madison and the Federalist 15, and that's just not happening. This is people coming into the country who don't have much of an understanding of the culture or the historical significance of these documents, and not that a lot of the kids do either, but it's a fool's errand.
Bringing in their own ideas, their own identity, their own faith,
language,
their own culture, their own history. And again, you take a look at Europe, and they form enclaves where very much their own language is spoken, their own traditions, food, everything else. And instead of the assimilation, Americanization that took place after the 20s, when that immigration halted up through 1965, where everybody was, by and large, Americanized, if you will. Everybody spoke English almost, and everyone was assimilated. This, in too many cases, is not happening.
Well, I completely agree. And, Pat, this Brexit vote, it obviously seems very close. The death of the MP, which they tried to paint as some big Brexit move by this killer. Turns out it had nothing to do with the killing, but there was all sorts of weird stuff going on there in the final days. The sky was going to fall if they do Brexit.
Well, it looks pretty close, and I think according to the markets, it looks like the stay people think they're slightly ahead, but they're both about sort of 45-45, I think, and with some undecideds.
Well, they were wrong about their regional elections and the polling, and I hope they're wrong again. Pat Buchanan, thank you so much for joining us and for your insight on what's at stake in 2016. Everybody has to put their egos aside.
Okay.
All right, not you, Pat. You can keep your ego. All right, we'll take a break. Don't go away. Donald Trump up next.